The stars looked different from the observation deck of the Varlaxian flagship. High Commander Zex Talon stood with his forearms clasped behind his back, yellow eyes fixed on the blue-green planet that grew larger on the view screen. Earth. Such an unimpressive name for the homeworld of a species that had somehow survived their own self-destructive tendencies. "Report," Zex Talon ordered, his voice a deep rumble that vibrated the metal deck plates. Science Officer Mev Laren approached, her skin shifting from green to blue with excitement. "Fascinating readings, Commander. The humans have recovered remarkably from their climate disasters of the previous century. They've unified under something called the Earth Alliance just 30 years ago, after their third resource war. Primitive species," muttered Sub-Commander Vex Uriel. "They nearly destroyed themselves 3 times and still managed to develop rudimentary space travel." "That's what makes them interesting," said Mev Laren. "Their technological growth rate exceeds normal patterns. They went from first-powered flight to landing on their moon in under 70 years. Zex Talon nodded slowly. The Varlaxian Confederation had spent thousands of years carefully advancing, each of the 7 member species evolving and developing at a predictable pace. Humans seemed to thrive on chaos. It was both fascinating and disturbing. "We're receiving a transmission," announced Communications Officer Trelzik. "Earth Alliance is welcoming us and providing approach vectors to their orbital diplomatic station." "Very well," Zex Talon said. "Inform the other ships. We proceed as planned." The diplomatic station orbiting Earth was crude by Confederation standards, but impressive for a species that had only recently established permanent settlements beyond their atmosphere. Zex Talon led a delegation of 12 representatives, one from each major caste of the Confederation's dominant species. They were met by a group of humans in matching blue uniforms with silver trim. One female stepped forward, her short brown hair framing a face with an expression the Varlaxians' cultural databases identified as pleasant but serious. "Welcome to Earth Diplomatic Station Freedom. I am Ambassador Susan Miller of the Earth Alliance. We are honored by your presence." She gestured to a tall male beside her. "This is Captain Alan Foster, our military liaison." Captain Foster nodded stiffly. Zex Talon noted the human's hand remained close to a device on his hip, likely a weapon. Interesting that they would bring armed personnel to a diplomatic meeting. Perhaps they were more primitive than initial reports suggested. "The honor is ours," Zex Talon replied through the translation device attached to his throat membrane. "The Varlaxian Confederation seeks peaceful relations with all sentient species." Ambassador Miller smiled. "Please, follow me to the reception area. Our president will address you via hologram shortly." The reception area featured large viewports showing Earth below. The humans had arranged displays of their culture, art objects, music instruments, and tables with food samples safe for Varlaxian consumption. Zex Talon observed his delegation sampling the offerings with cautious curiosity. Mev Laren approached him quietly. "Commander, my scans indicate the station is heavily armed despite its diplomatic designation. They've attempted to mask weapon emplacements, but they're definitely there." "Noted," Zex Talon replied. "A species so recently united after multiple wars would naturally be suspicious of visitors." A shimmering light appeared on a raised platform, forming into the 3-dimensional image of an older female human. "Distinguished guests, I am President Grace Martinez of the Earth Alliance. While I regret not greeting you in person, security protocols require me to remain planetside during first contact scenarios." Zex Talon inclined his head respectfully. "Your caution is understood, President Martinez. Humanity is pleased to join the galactic community," Martinez continued. "We have much to learn from your confederation, and hopefully some modest contributions of our own to offer. Ambassador Miller has full authority to negotiate preliminary trade and cultural exchange agreements." After the president's brief address ended, Ambassador Miller guided them to a large table. The formal discussions began with standard diplomatic protocols, establishing communication parameters, cultural exchange principles, and preliminary agreements about territorial boundaries. 4 hours into the meeting, Captain Foster cleared his throat. There's one more item our government insists be put on record. Ambassador Miller nodded. Yes, this is important. She stood, her expression solemn. The Earth Alliance wishes to establish peaceful relations with your Confederation. We believe cooperation benefits everyone. However, we must be direct about something. Zex's Talon noted how the room's atmosphere changed. The other human diplomat sat straighter. Captain Foster's hand moved closer to his weapon. Humanity has a long history of violence we've worked hard to overcome, Miller continued. Our unification is recent and came at great cost. For everyone's safety and continued good relations, we simply ask that you please don't make us mad. We'd rather be friends. A silence fell across the room before Zex Talon's deputy, Vex Uriel, made a sound like escaping steam, the Varlaxian equivalent of laughter. Ambassador Miller, Zex's Talon said carefully, your candor is appreciated. Rest assured, the Confederation has peacefully integrated 17 species across 300 star systems. We have no intention of provoking Earth. What he didn't say was how amusing he found the warning. The human ships they'd observed were primitive compared to Confederation technology. Their weapons were chemical and nuclear, technologies abandoned by the Confederation millennia ago. I'm glad we understand each other, Miller said, though something in her expression suggested she wasn't convinced. Later, back aboard the flagship, Zexa Talon reviewed the meeting with his senior officers. They're trying to appear stronger than they are, said military strategist Kraxvorn, a typical behavior of species new to interstellar contact. Their warning was almost charming, added Vex Uriel. Please don't make us mad. He mimicked the translation with mock severity. Mevlaren didn't join in the amusement. Commander, I've been analyzing their historical records. Humans have a unique pattern. They fight constant small-scale conflicts among themselves, but when faced with a common threat, they unify with remarkable speed. Are you suggesting we should take their warning seriously? Asked Kraxvorn incredulously. I'm suggesting we should study them more carefully before dismissing anything, Mevlaren replied. Zex Talon waved a dismissive hand. We will observe protocols as with any newly discovered species. Begin cultural exchanges, establish a diplomatic outpost, and conduct standard resource surveys of their system. As his officers left to carry out their orders, Zex's Talon looked once more at the blue planet on the view screen. Such an unassuming world, an unassuming species that somehow thought it necessary to warn one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy not to provoke them. How quaint, he thought. How very quaint indeed. He could not have known that 3 standard cycles later, he would remember Ambassador Miller's polite warning with very different emotions. By then, it would be far too late. 3 standard cycles passed since first contact with Earth. Relations between the Varlaxian Confederation and humans had been cautiously cordial. Cultural exchanges began, with small groups of human scholars visiting Confederation worlds while Varlaxian researchers set up observation posts throughout the Sol system. Commander Zex Talon sat in his private quarters reviewing reports when his communication panel chimed urgently. Commander, Vex Uriel's voice came through, tense and hurried. The Kravax research vessel Stellar Seeker has gone silent near Earth's moon. All communication attempts have failed. Zex Talon frowned. The Kravax were one of the junior species in the Confederation, blue-skinned beings with remarkable scientific minds but limited military experience. They had sent a small science vessel to study Earth's unusual moon. When was the last transmission? Zex Talon asked. 8 hours ago. They reported unusual energy readings, then nothing. Deploy search vessels immediately, Zex Talon ordered, and contact Earth Alliance, ask if they detected anything unusual. The reply from Earth came 2 hours later. Ambassador Miller's face appeared on the view screen, her expression neutral. Commander, we have no information about your missing vessel. Our lunar outpost detected no unusual activity in that sector. We are willing to assist in search efforts if you provide coordinates. Zex's Talon studied her face carefully. Thank you, Ambassador. I will send the coordinates shortly. After the transmission ended, military strategist Kraxivorn spoke up. She's lying. Our sensors detected Earth vessels in that exact region when the stellar seeker disappeared. Are you certain? Zex Talon asked. Completely, and there's more. Analysis of the last transmission shows weapons energy signatures before communication was lost. The commander's skin darkened with anger. Assemble the High Council. The humans have made a grave mistake. The Confederation High Council met virtually, representatives from all 7 member species connecting from across the stars. Elder Kavar of the Tellurians, the oldest species in the Confederation, spoke first. If humans have indeed destroyed a peaceful research vessel, this cannot go unanswered. The Kravax delegation demands immediate response. The Kravax representative, Premier Zolar, hissed through pointed teeth. 86 of our finest scientists were aboard that vessel. This is an act of war. Zex Talon listened as the debate raged. Some counseled patience, suggesting more investigation. Others demanded immediate military action. He thought of Ambassador Miller's warning. Please don't make us mad. Had it been a threat all along? Enough, he finally said. I propose a measured response. Not full-scale war, but a demonstration of power. The humans have a colony on their red planet Mars. It houses approximately 50,000 people. We will destroy it. The vote was not unanimous, but the majority agreed. The humans needed to learn their place in the galactic order. 24 hours later, 3 Confederation battlecruisers entered Mars orbit. The human defenses were pathetic. A few orbital platforms with chemical rockets and primitive energy. Weapons. They were disabled within minutes. From his command chair, Zex's Talon watched as targeting systems locked onto the main human settlement, a domed city in a vast crater. Send a transmission to Earth, he ordered. Let them see what happens when they violate Confederation peace. On the main view screen, President Martinez appeared, her face ashen. Behind her stood Captain Foster and several military officers. Commander Zex Talon, Martinez said, her voice steady despite her obvious distress. We have detected your ships at Mars. Whatever you believe we have done, I urge you to stand down and discuss this diplomatically. Diplomacy ended when you destroyed our research vessel, Zex Talon replied coldly. The Confederation does not tolerate attacks on peaceful missions. This is your punishment. We did not attack your vessel, Martinez insisted. I give you my word as leader of Earth. If it was destroyed, we had no part in it. Zex Talon saw Captain Foster whisper something to Martinez, who closed her eyes briefly before continuing. Our sensors detected an unknown energy surge in that region. We've been investigating it ourselves. Please give us time to share our findings. Your time has run out, Zex Talon said. He nodded to his weapons officer. Fire. The beam took less than 3 seconds to reach the surface. The dome cracked like an egg, atmosphere venting in a massive white cloud. Secondary explosions bloomed across the settlement as power plants and life support systems failed. Within minutes, 50,000 human lives ended. On the view screen, President Martinez's face showed no emotion now. She had gone beyond shock to something else. Captain Foster stepped forward, his expression equally blank. You have just killed 50,000 civilians, Foster said quietly. Men, women, children, scientists, teachers, farmers. A necessary demonstration, Zex Talon replied. Now you understand the price of defying the Confederation. Martinez looked directly into the camera. Commander, you will receive one more communication from us shortly. After that, she paused. After that, things will change. The transmission cut off. Zex Talon turned to his officers who were celebrating the successful operation. Maintain battle readiness, he ordered. The humans may attempt some foolish retaliation. 3 hours later, a single transmission came from Earth. It wasn't the President or Ambassador Miller. Instead, a new face appeared, a stern-looking woman with silver-streaked hair and cold eyes. I am Nancy Wilson, newly appointed Human Emergency Response Coordinator, she said. Her voice was calm, almost conversational. You ignored our warning, we asked politely. Remember that. The transmission ended. Vex Uriel laughed. Their response is to appoint a new official with a fancy title. Pathetic. But Science Officer Mev Laren looked troubled. Commander, I'm detecting unusual energy patterns around Earth. Their military installations are showing activity spikes unlike anything we've observed before. Let them posture, Zexatalon said dismissively. They have seen our power. Their logical course is surrender. Prepare a message demanding Earth's complete submission to Confederation authority. But the message was never sent. 17 minutes later, every communication system on the flagship suddenly failed. Engineers reported total system collapse across all 3 ships. Backup systems activated, then failed just as quickly, as his command ship drifted dead in space. Zexatalon looked out at the red planet below, where smoke still rose from the destroyed colony. A cold feeling settled in his stomach, something very much like fear. What had the human said? You ignored our warning, we asked politely. Remember that. For the first time, Zexatalon wondered if they had made a terrible mistake. Across 17 star systems, Confederation outposts, military bases, and communication relays suddenly went silent. Ships drifted powerless in space. Defense platforms orbiting core worlds failed one by one. The pattern was the same everywhere. Systems would flicker, then die completely, leaving no trace of what had caused the failure. In the central command bunker beneath Earth's Rocky Mountains, Dr. William Hayes watched streams of data flow across his screens. He hadn't slept in 3 days. None of them had. Not since Mars. Status report, said Nancy Wilson, entering the room. The emergency response coordinator moved with calm purpose, seemingly unaffected by the weight of her new role. Phase 1 is complete, Hayes replied, running a hand through his disheveled hair. We've disabled their primary communication network across all identified systems. Their ships near Mars remain isolated and powerless. Wilson nodded, studying the large display showing Confederation territory. Red dots representing disabled systems covered nearly a third of the map. The quantum entanglement protocol worked. Better than expected, Hayes continued. Once we reverse-engineered their FTL communication tech from the diplomatic exchange data, it was just a matter of inserting our code. And they have no way to track it back to us? Wilson asked. None. The viruses self-replicate using their own systems. As far as they can tell, their technology is simply failing. In another section of the facility, Lieutenant Samantha Burke prepared her team. The 6 men and women wore black suits made from a material that absorbed light, heat, and other forms of energy. Each carried a small pack of equipment. Remember, Burke told them, this is infiltration only. We get in, place the markers, and get out. No engagement unless absolutely necessary. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Kevin Wright, checked his equipment one last time. The stealth tech Dr. Hayes provided is untested against their sensors. What if they detect us? Then we improvise, Burke replied with a grim smile. But they won't. The Varlaxians rely too heavily on their advanced technology. They never developed the kind of paranoia that comes from centuries of humans fighting humans. President Martinez entered the room, accompanied by Captain Foster. Everyone stood at attention. At ease, Martinez said. Her eyes were sunken from lack of sleep, but her voice remained steady. Lieutenant Burke, your mission to Europa has been authorized. The Confederation's primary military installation in our system is located there. Your team's success is crucial to Phase 2. We won't fail, Madam President, Burke said. I know. Martinez placed a hand on Burke's shoulder. The 50,000 on Mars are counting on all of us. 6 hours later, Burke's team approached Jupiter's icy moon Europa in a craft smaller than a standard shuttle. The ship had no official designation or markings. According to all sensors, it barely existed at all, its signature reduced to that of a small piece of space debris. The massive Confederation base dominated Europa's surface, a sprawling complex of domes and towers, protected by energy shields. Under normal circumstances, approaching it would be suicide. But these were not normal circumstances. Their shields are operating at minimum capacity, Wright whispered, though there was no need for quiet in the vacuum of space. Old habits from Stealth training died hard. They're diverting power to try to re-establish communications. Burke nodded. Perfect. Prepare for insertion through Grid Sector 9. The tiny craft slipped through a flicker in the energy shield, landing silently on the base's outer perimeter. The team exited in pairs, their suits rendering them nearly invisible against the icy surface. Inside the base, Confederation personnel rushed about in confusion. Communications officers tried desperately to contact their central command. Military leaders argued about what action to take. None noticed the shadows moving silently through their corridors. Burke's team split up, each member placing small devices at key locations throughout the facility: junction boxes, central computers, life support controls. The devices did nothing, merely sat inert, waiting. But their placement was precise, calculated for maximum effect if ever activated. In the central command room, Sub-Commander Trell Nazir of the Kravax pounded a blue fist on his console. "It makes no sense," he hissed to his officers. "How could primitive humans disable our entire network? We are technologically superior in every way." None of his officers had an answer. Burke, hidden in a service duct above, placed her final device directly over the main tactical display. Then she did something not in the mission plan. She left a note written on actual paper, a material the Confederation rarely used. The note was simple. "We could have killed everyone here. Please reconsider your actions." 5 hours after they arrived, Burke's team departed, leaving no evidence of their presence except the note and the dormant devices. Their mission complete, they returned to Earth, where President Martinez and the War Council waited for news. "The infiltration was successful," Burke reported. "We've placed control nodes throughout their primary military installation. If necessary, we can shut it down completely." "What about their dreadnoughts?" Captain Foster asked. "Our intelligence says they have 5 in the nearby sector." "Still out of communication range," Hayes replied from his station. "But they'll reach our system within 72 hours. Once they enter normal space, they'll discover what's happened." Wilson turned to Martinez. "Madam President, we need your decision. Do we proceed with Phase 3? Martinez stared at the display showing the Confederation dreadnoughts, massive vessels designed to subdue entire planets. Each carried weapons capable of reducing Earth cities to ash. 50,000 dead on Mars might seem like a small number compared to what those ships could do. "They killed our people without provocation," she said quietly, "based on a false assumption. We tried to warn them. We asked politely." She straightened her shoulders. "Yes, proceed with Phase 3. Admiral Bennett?" Admiral George Bennett stepped forward. At 62, he was the oldest military officer in the room, a veteran of Earth's last internal conflicts before unification. "Our defense fleet is ready, Madam President. We've equipped all ships with Dr. Hayes's new drives and Lieutenant Burke's infiltration data. The moment those dreadnoughts enter our system, we'll be ready." Meanwhile, in Confederation space, the 5 dreadnoughts continued their journey, unaware of what awaited them. On the lead ship, Fleet Admiral Zor Khan reviewed what little information they had. "The humans have somehow disabled our communications network," he told his officers. "A lucky strike, nothing more. We will remind them of the true power of the Confederation. Our 5 dreadnoughts are more than enough to force their surrender." His weapons officer nodded in agreement. "The primitive species won't stand a chance. Their ships are toys compared to ours. We will be in weapons range of Earth in 3 days." What none of them realized was that humanity wasn't planning to fight on Confederation terms. They never did. The 5 Confederation dreadnoughts emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. Each ship stretched nearly 5 miles long, their hulls covered with weapon ports capable of reducing planets to molten rock. They represented the pinnacle of Confederation military power, never defeated in the 1,000 years since their design was perfected. Fleet Admiral Zor Khan stood on the command deck of the flagship Eternal Dominion, his scaled skin gleaming under the blue lights. "Status report," he ordered as the massive ships oriented themselves toward the inner planets. "All systems optimal, Admiral," his second-in-command reported. We are detecting unusual energy readings from Earth. Their primitive defense fleet appears to be mobilizing. Zorkan made a dismissive gesture with one of his forearms. Let them. It will make no difference. He touched a control panel, opening a channel to Earth. Prepare a transmission. The humans should understand their choices before we destroy their civilization. On Earth, in the Mountain Command Center, President Martinez watched as the dreadnoughts appeared on the long-range scanners. The room fell silent. For many, this was their first glimpse of the ships that could end human existence. Incoming transmission from the lead dreadnought, a communications officer announced. Put it through, Martinez ordered, her voice steady. Admiral, Zorkan's alien face filled the main screen. People of Earth, I am Fleet Admiral Zorkan of the Varlaxian Confederation. Your unprovoked attacks on our communications network and your destruction of our research vessel cannot go unpunished. Surrender immediately, or face extinction. You have 1 Earth hour to comply. To demonstrate our resolve, we will destroy your largest city, New Beijing, as our first target. The transmission ended. Martinez turned to Admiral Bennett, who stood calmly reviewing data on his tablet. Admiral, it's time for the Bennett maneuver. Are your people ready? The older man nodded. Yes, Madam President. Our ships are in position. Dr. Hayes's calculations are complete. We only get 1 chance at this. Martinez looked around the room at the faces of her war council. Dr. Hayes with his tired eyes and brilliant mind. Lieutenant Burke, still in her stealth suit from the Europa mission. And Emergency Coordinator Wilson, whose cold determination had guided their response since the Mars attack. 50,000 souls on Mars will be avenged today, Martinez said, quietly. Admiral Bennett, you have command of the operation. Godspeed. In space, the human defense fleet looked pathetically small compared to the approaching dreadnoughts. Earth had managed to assemble 37 combat vessels, the largest barely 1/8 the size of a single Confederation dreadnought. They formed a loose defensive sphere around Earth, seemingly prepared to make a last stand. How quaint, Sub-Commander Vexaloran commented on the Eternal Dominion's bridge. They think they can protect their world with those toys. Admiral Zorkan studied the human formation more carefully. Something is wrong. Their deployment makes no tactical sense, and our sensors are detecting unusual energy fluctuations in their drive systems. Before he could order a more detailed scan, the human vessels did something impossible. They vanished. One moment they were there, the next, nothing. Where did they go? Zorkan demanded. Find them. Sensors detect nothing, Admiral. The science officer reported, his voice rising with concern. It's as if they simply ceased to exist. Then alarms blared across the bridge. Multiple contacts, directly behind us, inside our shield perimeter. The human ships had appeared in the dreadnought's blind spots in positions that should have been impossible to reach. According to all known physics, no ship could make an FTL jump within a solar system due to the gravitational interference from the sun and planets. Yet somehow the humans had done exactly that. Open fire, Zorkan ordered, but it was too late. The human vessels didn't attack with lasers or missiles. Instead, they released small devices that attached to the dreadnoughts' hulls. Dr. Lisa Martinez had designed these weapons based on a revolutionary understanding of physics. Each device created a localized disruption in the laws of physics, specifically targeting the exotic matter that powered the Confederation vessels. On the Eternal Dominion, Zorkan watched in horror as 3 of his 5 dreadnoughts simply imploded, collapsing in on themselves as their power cores destabilized. His own ship shuddered violently as systems began to fail. Target New Beijing, he screamed. Fire main planet killer before we lose power. The weapons officer managed to comply. A massive energy beam lanced from the dreadnought toward Earth, striking the Asian megacity directly. Millions of lives ended in an instant. Back in the Mountain Command Center, the displays showed the catastrophic loss of New Beijing. Martinez closed her eyes briefly in grief. They managed to fire on the city, Admiral Bennett reported grimly. 3 dreadnoughts destroyed, 2 disabled but still partially operational. Casualties in New Beijing? Martinez asked, her voice hoarse. Preliminary estimate 23 million, Wilson replied. The evacuation was only 30% complete. Martinez's hands clenched into fists. They've left us no choice. Major Collins? Major Frank Collins stepped forward. A small, unassuming man. He didn't look like someone who controlled the most devastating weapon humanity had ever created. The Prometheus Protocol is ready, Madam President, he said quietly. Awaiting your authorization. Martinez looked at the faces around her. No one spoke. They all understood what the Prometheus Protocol meant. It was the line they had hoped never to cross. They killed 50,000 on Mars without provocation, Martinez said. Now 23 million more. There is no other way to ensure Earth's survival. She took a deep breath. Major Collins, you are authorized to activate the Prometheus Protocol. Collins nodded and opened a secure terminal. He entered a series of codes known only to him. On the screen, a simple message appeared. Protocol activated. Across Confederation space, in every ship, on every planet, on every space station, something awakened. During the seemingly peaceful diplomatic exchanges weeks earlier, human representatives had released microscopic nanites, too small to be detected by Confederation scanners. The nanites had spread throughout Confederation civilization, dormant, until now. They didn't attack living beings. They had only one purpose: to disable any military technology above a certain complexity level. Weapons, shields, navigation systems, communication arrays, anything that could be used to harm Earth. On the damaged dreadnoughts, Admiral Zorikhan watched in disbelief as every system on his ship suddenly shut down. Emergency backups failed. Auxiliary power died. Even handheld weapons carried by his soldiers stopped functioning. For the first time in Confederation history, their technological superiority meant nothing. In the silence of his darkened bridge, Zorikhan finally understood the humans' warning. Please don't make us mad. It hadn't been a threat. It had been a desperate attempt to prevent this moment, and the Confederation had ignored it. 17 days after the attack on Mars, the Varlaxian Confederation formally surrendered to Earth. It was unprecedented in galactic history, a species with interstellar travel for less than a decade defeating one of the oldest civilizations in known space. The peace conference took place on neutral ground, a space station hastily constructed at the halfway point between Earth and the nearest Confederation world. The station's design was deliberately simple, with no advanced technology that could be affected by the still active Prometheus Protocol. Ambassador Olivia Rodriguez led the Earth delegation. Though not a military officer, she had been chosen specifically for her background in conflict resolution. Beside her sat Dr. Hayes, Lieutenant Burke, and Major Collins, the architects of humanity's unexpected victory. Across the table, High Elder Kavar represented the Confederation. The ancient Tellurian's skin was pale with age, his 4 eyes cloudy but still alert. Flanking him were representatives from each member species, including Commander Zex Talon, now stripped of his rank, but required to attend as a witness to his failure. We are prepared to accept your terms, Elder Kavar began, his translator device converting his whistling speech to human language. The Confederation acknowledges defeat and seeks mercy from Earth, Ambassador Rodriguez nodded. The Earth Alliance does not seek vengeance or domination. We want only security for our people and peaceful coexistence. She activated a simple display showing the terms of peace. The Confederation would withdraw all military forces from the Sol system. A demilitarized zone would be established spanning 10 light-years in all directions from Earth. The Prometheus Protocol would remain active for 1 standard year as a guarantee of compliance, after which the nanites would deactivate themselves. These terms are generous, Elder Kavar admitted, surprise evident in his voice. Given your complete military advantage, you could demand much more. Destroying your civilization would not bring back our dead, Rodriguez replied. Humans have learned that lesson through our own bloody history. Zex Talon, who had remained silent, finally spoke. I do not understand. How did you defeat us so completely? Your technology was primitive compared to ours, Dr. Hayes answered, his voice tired but patient. We didn't beat your technology. We used it against you. Every piece of information you shared during diplomatic exchanges was studied and reverse engineered. Every cultural artifact we traded contained hidden data gathering systems. But how? Zexatalon insisted. How could you develop weapons to counter our shields? How could you perform FTL jumps inside a solar system? Our scientists declared such things impossible. Necessity, Lieutenant Burke said simply. Humans excel at finding ways to do the impossible when our survival depends on it. The discussion continued for hours, establishing protocols for future contact and exchanges. As the formal proceedings concluded, Elder Kavar asked the question that had troubled the Confederation leadership since their defeat. There is something we still do not understand. Our investigation has revealed that our research vessel, the Stellar Seeker, was not destroyed by humans as we assumed. Our reconstruction of their final transmissions shows they encountered an unknown predatory species at the edge of your solar system. The humans exchanged glances. Major Collins nodded slowly. We know, Rodriguez said. We detected them 3 months ago. A highly aggressive species we call the Void Hunters. They've been contained by a quarantine field at the heliopause. You knew? Zextalon's skin flushed dark with anger. Why didn't you tell us? Why did you let us believe you had attacked our vessel? We tried, Dr. Hayes explained. But we lacked a common language to explain what we'd found. Our warnings about the threat were misinterpreted as threats against you. A heavy silence fell over the room as understanding dawned on the Confederation representatives. Their hasty judgment had led to tragedy. 50,000 human lives on Mars, 23 million on Earth. All because they had misunderstood a warning. What happens now? Elder Kavar asked finally. Ambassador Rodriguez leaned forward. Now we learn from this mistake. The Void Hunters are a threat to all intelligent life. We've managed to contain them temporarily, but they're adapting quickly. We'll need to work together to develop a permanent solution. The peace treaty was signed that day, but it represented more than just an end to hostilities. It marked the beginning of a new understanding between species. The Confederation gained access to human tactical thinking and adaptability, while humans gained entry into the wider galactic community. 6 months later, a joint military academy was established on Earth's moon. Confederation officers studied, alongside human tacticians, each learning from the other's strengths. On Mars, where the first shots had been fired, a memorial was constructed. At its center stood a simple stone obelisk inscribed with words in both human and Confederation languages. We asked politely. Next time, perhaps they'll listen. Dr. Hayes, now heading the Joint Scientific Division, often brought new Confederation exchange students to visit this memorial. On one such visit, a young Kravak scientist asked him a question that many still pondered. If you could have prevented the war, would you have done anything differently? Hayes gazed at the monument, thinking of the 50,000 souls lost on Mars and the millions more in New Beijing. We would have been more direct, he said finally. Less polite, perhaps. But that's the challenge of first contact, finding the balance between respect and clarity. He turned to face the group of alien students. The most dangerous misunderstanding is believing that politeness equals weakness. The lesson spread throughout Confederation space, taught in every diplomatic academy and military school. When humans say, please don't make us mad, they aren't making a threat. They're trying to prevent a tragedy. As for the Void Hunters at the edge of the solar system, they remained contained behind the quarantine field, a problem for another day. But this time, humans and the Confederation would face the threat together, their combined strengths far greater than either could achieve alone, and across the stars, other civilizations heard the story of how humans defeated the mighty Confederation. They noted the lesson carefully. When meeting humans, listen carefully to their warnings, especially when delivered politely.